ABC 10 News at 4 starts now.
An unclear path forward for students in Vista, back at home less than a month after returning to the classroom. One parent says she's not surprised. And justice for victims of a convicted rapist and former La Jolla restaurant owner, the sentence handed down today. Plus, when thousands of U.S. troops will be pulled from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's back to online learning for students at 3 North County schools. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kimberly Hunt. And a handful of positive COVID-19 cases in the Vista Unified School District has those campuses temporarily closed. ABC 10 News reporter Rachel Bianco spoke with one mom who says social distancing in this district just isn't possible.
Less than a month after opening for in-person learning, 3 schools in the Vista Unified District are returning to virtual learning for 2 weeks. Cynthia Villarreal's daughter Sonia is a junior at Rancho Buena Vista High School, one of the schools pivoting to distance learning. Her mom isn't surprised.
I've had to pull mine out several times because I'm uncomfortable with the whole situation.
In addition to Rancho Buena Vista High School, Vista Magnet Middle School and Madison Middle School are returning to remote learning. It's the second time for Madison Middle. Villarreal says the classes are simply too big for social distancing.
I don't think that 39 kids in a classroom times 6 classes is acceptable. We're not allowed to have weddings that are 228 people. Why is it okay, for my daughter to be exposed to 228 kids?
According to the district's website, the high school has 3 positive cases. The middle schools have 2 each. There have been a total of 40 COVID-19 cases since students returned to campus. Villarreal says it's too late for her daughter to get into full-time online learning. She doesn't know what to do.
I'm not sending her back to school in person. It's too scary.
The superintendent's office did not return our calls. Rachel Bianco, ABC 10 News.
We've also just learned someone is tested positive for the virus at Vista High School. The school sent an email to parents saying that the campus has been deemed safe and does not need to close at this time. Californians now have to wear facial coverings at all times when leaving the house if they come within 6 feet of anyone outside the household. And that includes outdoor activities as well as exercising. It's part of Governor Newsom's tightened restrictions announced this week. 40 counties were moved back into the most restrictive tier. The governor says he is considering a statewide curfew due to surging case numbers. And just in, TMZ is reporting Harvey Weinstein is ill and likely has COVID-19. The media organization is citing law enforcement sources who are telling them that doctors are awaiting the result, but his symptoms point to likely coronavirus. The report says that Weinstein has been put into isolation for 72 hours. The 67-year-old film producer is serving 23 years in prison for rape and sexual assault.
Well, as COVID cases rise, not all patients may have access to the best treatments. Doctors may have to limit who gets the new FDA-approved antibody drug. It can help newly diagnosed high-risk patients avoid hospitalization. Facilities are trying to figure out who they should give it to since there just is not enough to go around. Inequality has been a top issue in America this year. Through the pandemic, protests, politics, and new data is showing pregnancy. Take a look at this March of Dimes map showing where racial and ethnic disparities are highest among preterm births. Well, the darker the purple, the deeper the divide. The group's report also shows the racial divide when it comes to infant deaths. The group says that 2 babies die every hour. Black babies are more than twice the death rate of white babies. Women of color are up to 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women, and for a 5th year in a row, preterm birth rates have increased. The country got an overall C- grade, and that's lower than last year.
We know too many women after giving birth are kicked off of Medicaid within about 60 days after the delivery. Extending Medicaid to at least 1 year postpartum helps because we know 1/3 of the deaths that happen, and as well as suffering, is after the birth of the child.
6 out of 10 of those deaths are preventable. Monitoring blood pressure and mental health, though, can help.
We're making good progress. And a lot of that's because of improved rates of teen pregnancy, smoking, and some of the other aspects, including access to healthcare. However, it's not enough.
March of Dimes is hoping for policy change using hashtag #BlanketChange. You can read more at marchofdimes.org.
A former La Jolla restaurant owner convicted of raping multiple women was sentenced today to 40 years in prison. ABC 10 News investigative reporter Jennifer Kastner broke this story in 2018 when Daniel Dorado was charged with drugging and assaulting his victims. Tonight, she has the emotional testimony at today's hearing.
Several of his victims spoke in court today, describing the distressing and ongoing psychological impacts of their assaults. On a live stream to the courtroom while sitting in jail Tuesday, convicted rapist and former La Jolla restaurateur Daniel Dorado was read his sentence.
The total term of imprisonment is 40 years. I don't mind saying this is the maximum that I believe I can impose under the law.
A maximum sentence of 40 years in prison. The former owner of Bird Rock's Voce del Mare was found guilty last December on 20 counts related to rape and sexual assault of 4 victims who were unconscious and intoxicated. ABC 10 News broke the story 2 years ago when he was charged with drugging and raping women, sometimes at his restaurant.
I still don't feel safe going to job interviews in person alone. I don't feel safe to do outdoor activities alone. I can't tolerate being around men, not even family.
Fighting back tears Tuesday, one victim, whose face we're not showing, described her trauma from meeting Dorado after answering an ad on Craigslist for a hostess position.
He is an evil individual.
Another victim described her own assault.
I simply went on a date with him and ended up getting sexually assaulted by him for hours in a hotel room where I was unconscious.
But one woman who was named as a victim defended Dorado, said she was even friends with him, and accused detectives of manipulating her to testify against her will and appear confused about a possible assault.
Your Honor, I'm here today because on March 28, 2018, the day Mr. Dorado was arrested, I was at Mr. Dorado's house, and the police stopped my vehicle as I left for work in an attempt to collect information on Mr. Dorado, as they were in the process of serving a search warrant and weren't expecting anyone to leave his residence.
Ultimately, the judge ordered Dorado to pay $10,000 in restitution, in addition to serving his prison term. Dorado maintains his innocence and says every sexual encounter was consensual. Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.
ABC 10 News reached out to the DA's office about the woman who defended Dorado in court today. The DA sent a statement reading, "Today's comments in open court by the judge, the victims, and our prosecutor, along with the evidence presented at trial, all support the just result and the appropriate sentence in this case." Thousands more U.S. troops will return from Afghanistan and Iraq under President Trump. Today, Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller announced major troop reductions effective January 15th. That's just days before President-elect Joe Biden is expected to take office. About 2,000 are expected to be withdrawn from Afghanistan, 500 from Iraq, and about 2,500 American personnel will remain in each country.
All right, let's start the news feed. The number of children diagnosed with COVID-19 in the U.S. New numbers from the American Academy of Pediatrics show more than 1 million have tested positive since the pandemic started. Last week, nearly 112,000 kids were diagnosed. The first mask mandate for the state of Iowa going into effect today. The governor reversing course after a major surge in cases in the state in recent weeks. Leading national healthcare organizations are urging the Trump administration to share information on its COVID-19 response with the Biden transition team. They sent the letter that you're looking at right here to the president today. They say they want to make sure there is no lapse in their ability to care for patients.